Today in episode 32 of the podcast, we'll be discussing the kind of biggest stories out of D23. It's still going on right now. We got the animation panels going on. And the end of House of the Dragon is set. We've got 2 more seasons to go, and it is over with. But that's not the end of Game of Thrones. We got a lot more in the Game of Thrones universe going to be happening. We'll also be breaking down the first season of Batman Caped Crusader and reviewing the film Borderlands. I'm Brad, he's Josh, and welcome to We'll Bring the Popcorn.
Before we get started with the news today, we want to remind everyone to stick around for the end of the episode. We will be announcing the winner of our merch giveaway. Thank you to everyone who took the time to enter that, and we will be announcing that at the end, so stick around. Now, I want to start with the news this week. We do have a sequel series in the John Wick universe. We call everything a universe anymore, but in the John Wick world, universe, whatever your vernacular is, it's going to be called The High Table. So Chad Stahelski, who has directed all of the John Wick films, is going to be attached to direct this as well. Keanu Reeves is going to be attached as an executive producer on the series as well, but he won't be starring in it. But it's another series set in this world that, just really came out of nowhere and became really huge and really popular and really resurrected Keanu Reeves' career.
Yeah, this is the first one post John Wick 4 that we're seeing. So yeah, Keanu's going to produce, but he's not going to star, but we don't know if it's going to give us any information on, because it kind of left it open that if you haven't seen John Wick 4, it seems like he's gone now, but is anybody really ever dead anymore? Nope. If it's making enough money, they're going to live forever. So, but we'll see if this series possibly follows up on that at all, because I know there's been talks of a potential John Wick 5, and they want to keep it going for as long as they can. But yeah, being set right after John Wick 4, there's a lot of questions I have on, are we going to get any answers, or is this going to be something that's pretty far away from what we've been seeing with him, or maybe it takes place maybe during the time or right after the time that he's passed, so they really haven't had time to really deal with it or have any questions on it. But I'm curious to see if we get any answers, if he is still out there anywhere, possibly.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it takes place right after John Wick 4, so hopefully it has a little bit of more legs under it than the Continental had. I know the Continental was kind of considered by many to be a miss, kind of set in that same world. I know the reviews on that hadn't been very good. I haven't watched all of it yet, but from what I've seen, it wasn't quite the same quality as the John Wick movies, which, it's one of the rare film series that all 4 movies are really high quality and really good films that, that seem to keep that fan excitement around for each one of these films too. Cause you get into the 3rd and 4th films in most of these franchises, and it does take a bit of a quality dive in a lot of cases, but this one has been really good. So I'm excited that, Chad Stahelski, who obviously directed all of the films, is being attached to this too. So you get to kind of continue his vision of, this world and this story, and he knows the way to present this, at least aesthetically, and kind of bring this to life in the way that we're accustomed to seeing with these characters.
Yeah, they have him for at least the pilot, so we'll see if they're able to continue on after. If he only does that one episode, hopefully they can continue that, because what made those movies work was Keanu and Chad. You've got them as a part of this, so hopefully that means it's going to be much higher quality. And we're still waiting for the ballerina, because that got delayed a year so they could put some more action sequences and more in there, which John Wick is supposed to have a cameo in that movie as well. I think they actually showed off a clip this past spring where they were talking about that, showed him, which this is pre John Wick 4. But we still got the ballerina, and we have the High Table coming out, so there's still quite a bit to be seen in the John Wick universe.
Yeah, there's definitely different avenues that they could go down around this. There's I get the Continental Hotel was such a central where most of the action took place in and around that hotel. I get why they did that with the series that they came out with. It didn't quite hit on the same level as the movies did, but there's a lot of things in that world and a lot of characters and a lot of places you can expand off and create some really interesting stories for. So I'm excited to see what they come up with for this, and I'm ready day one when this comes out to check it out. I'm excited, especially with, like you said, that continuity with Chad and Keanu both being attached to it. They're going to, hopefully take proper care of this as they have with the other 4 movies.
I'm still waiting for a John Wick video game, especially after John Wick 4 with that top-down fight sequences with the Dragon Breath shotgun. Like, give us a John Wick video game, Unreal Engine 5, and let's just go nuts with the destructible environments and everything else. Like, it would be a ton of fun.
I agree. That's definitely one that could feel very like Hitman-esque, because I know that's a lot of inspiration there, and give me that rampaging John Wick.
Could be kind of Max Payne a bit as well.
Yeah, I that would be a lot of fun to play. I agree, and we would love to see that made. Who knows? Maybe it could, but that would be a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. There's an avenue they haven't gone down.
I'm surprised they haven't
yet, but yeah, maybe it's going to happen.
We'll see. Get it done. Get it made.
Moving on to Marvel a little bit, so Deadpool and Wolverine is still just doing gangbusters. It should, by the time this episode comes out, past $1 billion worldwide. They're expecting it to potentially end around $1.5 billion, which is insane for a rated R movie for Deadpool. It's been doing gangbusters, but pretty much everything they had set for spoilers, everything, that's all done for. So you've had all the actors and Sean Levy, the director, all of them posting the spoilers. So, we even had Ryan Reynolds put out wanting to campaign for Wesley Snipes to get a final Blade movie or show or something, give him a Logan send-off, which would be pretty amazing to that was still one of the biggest cameos that surprised me, because as we talked about, you can look at our Deadpool and Wolverine review that Ryan and Wesley did not get along doing Blade Trinity, and to see them come back together and have their everything back and forth in there, and Wesley is also quite older now and stuff, but it would be pretty interesting to see him get one more spin as Blade to finish off his story.
It was cool to see them bury the hatchet, and you see like all of these amazing things that have been put out. Everybody giving, especially like Ryan Reynolds, his flowers as far as like getting a lot of these types of things to come into this movie that, were either like never getting a proper send off, which they integrated into the film, or just in like Channing Tatum's case, never getting made to begin with. Right. So it's funny. We've joked about, being frustrated with the lack of a new Blade movie with Mahershala Ali, which, feels like at this point may never get made, but it might be more realistic that we get a final Wesley Snipes Blade movie than we would a Mahershala Ali new Blade movie, which is crazy.
It's
but
almost seeming like
with the popularity of it, I really think that that's a possibility. Especially with the stroke that Ryan Reynolds is having right now. Like, my God, his not only his star level, but his just respect level in the industry is just continuing to increase, and you're seeing this outpouring of love and respect to everybody that's made this movie, whether it's Hugh Jackman himself or Channing Tatum pending a really nice message to Ryan Reynolds, like thanking him for kind of going to bat for his character and wanting him to be in there. Same thing with Wesley Snipes and burying the hatchet. Like, it was so cool to see like that outpouring of love and respect for Ryan, that this movie was as amazing as it was. It's a ton of fun, and seeing that he could potentially help these things get off the ground is a big deal. Like, getting these finales for these characters that they do touch on a little bit in the film, and they do that, but we've talked about like getting these guys a proper send off, and now it's a realistic possibility that it could happen.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. We've seen Ryan come out and talk about, so they, we're talking with Nicolas Cage about potentially coming back as Ghost Rider. Awesome. Denied Taylor Swift was ever even going to be in it, but the probably most interesting one was Robert Downey Jr. Actually, they read lines together. So when, if you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine yet, there is a scene where Wade goes and talks to Happy Hogan about joining the Avengers. Well, originally that was supposed to be Robert Downey Jr., or Robert Downey Jr. is going to be a part of that scene. But once they found out about Doom, it didn't seem right to have him included in there because of that. So, his casting as Victor Von Doom kind of killed that little cameo, which it would have been fun and interesting, but yeah, to have that cameo there and then have him, come back as Doom did seem like a kind of a good thing not to happen, but we'll see how many other cameos that they thought about that they release here in the next few weeks. It seems like about once a week they're kind of revealing more and more about who else they've been talking to try to come back.
Yeah, and having Robert Downey Jr. would have been cool for sure. And then what's really smart about how they wrote this movie is they they pivoted to kind of making the joke that, you know, Tony doesn't do this sort of thing anymore. And it's like, what's that, interviews or what's that, cameos? And he was like, no interviews, that kind of thing. But it was still pretty fun that now that we know, obviously, that he is coming back to the MCU as Victor Von Doom in the upcoming Avengers films, that I get why they kept it out of this film to kind of not take the, you know, heat away from that announcement, because that announcement was everywhere, literally. Like, you saw it all over social media. But it is fun. Like, I really do think Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider would have been awesome. I'd have lost it for that one, because I know a lot of people are now starting to clamor more for the Midnight Suns movies, and, you know, who's going to come back as Ghost Rider. I know, like, people like to fantasy cast, like Norman Reedus is like a great option for that, which I agree.
And Ryan Gosling has been a rumored one.
Yeah, and then there was even the possible of just grabbing the kid that played him in I say kid, but grabbing the actor that played him in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series, did a good job, I think, playing a different, you know, Ghost Rider character that wasn't the regular, like, Nicolas Cage character too. But it's going to be fun to see who all, like, we could have had in the what ifs, you know, like, that could have been in this movie. I think would be a fun topic of conversation, because you could almost fill a movie with the people that weren't in it potentially than the ones that were.
And going back to Wesley Snipes, so it is kind of funny. So it's been talked about a lot about how Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is one of the longest running characters, and you know, no one has played a character as long as him. Well, with Wesley Snipes returning as Blade, he just broke Hugh Jackman's record, because, you know, the Blade movies predate all the X-Men movies. So with him returning, he's now the record holder for longest appearances. So we'll have to see. Does Hugh Jackman show up in the next Avengers movies and take his record back? Or, you know, we'll see what goes with that. But it's just funny to bring him back when you're bringing Hugh Jackman back, but that also breaks his record. I'm sure they were aware of that, and I'm curious to see how they kind of thought about that and played with that.
Well, you know, in true fashion, he has to show up, and even if he just walks past and says had to do it for the record or something, would be hilarious, just to kind of...
Just walk behind.
Kind of walk by and said record holder and just keep moving or something. But you know, he's probably gonna come back for.
Especially with Deadpool Wolverine doing so well.
Yeah, with as well as it's done, he's gotta be in Secret Wars at least. You know, bare minimum. If they put those guys in there, like, it's gonna be a ton of fun. I can't wait for that movie to come out. But yeah, you know, to kind of talk about the other cameos that did make it into the film, like, Channing Tatum did come out and say that he has had talks with Marvel about potentially bringing the Gambit movie back too. So this is what I'm talking about with the power of this movie and the success that it's had. And, you know, Channing's, you know, appearance as Gambit has got a lot of people talking, you know, with the way he talks, and it's been kind of memified and, you know, some other things. I know a lot of people I know are, like, quoting several of his lines from the movie.
Make a name for myself.
About to make a name for myself, you know, and it's cool because you and I are both huge, like, fans of the character Gambit. That's probably both of our favorite X-Men characters. And, you know, the fact that this could even happen, that he could make this movie now, or at least he's had the talks, like, that wouldn't have happened had it not been for this movie. So I hope at some point, like, you get something with these guys in another property. Like, I know you and I have kind of talked about off the record about, like, a potential, like, live action what if scenario, which would have been a lot of fun to have these guys at least, if not a full
Tales of the Multiverse, where each episode is a different, like, hour long. You could have Wesley Snipes return as Blade and have him go on one last hunt or something, and Channing Tatum go on a mission as, you know, Gambit, and bring whatever rogue, like, he wants to bring in. You could have Deadpool host it. He could be sitting there with I just picture him sitting in the TVA in a big chair with, like, the Wonderful World of Disney book in his lap, and he's flipping through, telling us all different stories, and it's doing like, they could have some fun with that and do some multiverse tales. Like, they've had all these cameos, but there hasn't been any talks of really bringing anything back into new, because there's been talks about Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 4 happening, or Andrew Garfield getting a third of his, but nothing has come to fruition. Maybe they give them an episode each where they get these small little stories, but it's a way to bring another closure to these characters in a really fun what-if type of way that you could have. I think it would be a ton of fun to see these, like, one and a half hour episodes that just bring us different parts, and bring the Fox X-Men back one more time, where they actually get in their suits that's not tight black leather. And, you know, it would be really interesting if they did something like that in live action, where they gave all these casting characters and people throughout the Fox universe and Marvel universe, some extra time.
I love it, and it would be a lot of fun. Make it happen, Marvel. That would be a ton of fun. If you don't want to, like, put a bunch of money into these movies, do something like that. That would be a lot of fun. That would be a lot of fan service and get you a lot of positive publicity for it. It would be a lot of fun. We just want credit when you finally do it. That's all we ask for.
Yeah, because it could be a one-off one season where they just, all right, how many of these stories do we want to tell? All right, we've got 6 to 8 episodes. Let's make them all. It's a special event, and they're kind of done.
So much fun.
And they could also, if they wanted to bring them back for Secret Wars, you bring at least Gambit back for Secret Wars. Would be a lot of fun. It would be really interesting if Channing does get another chance again, because we know they were hamming it up with his accent and going a little over the top with the story. So we'll see with his accent and with how he spoke, if they actually kind of tone that down and bring it into a different level when it comes. Because the action sequences with him look fantastic. It was a lot of fun to watch him really sit there and fight and beat Gambit. Like, seeing a proper, true Gambit on screen was so incredible. Now I'm waiting for Rogue. Like, I've said it before, I love Anna Paquin. She's a great actress, but they did nothing that wasn't Rogue in the Fox X-Men movies. Sure. Like, I want to see a proper Rogue that has that dynamic of being strong and being a fearsome fighter, but also having that sensitive Southern charm and who's dealing with a lot of stuff. But we got the teenager in distress. We didn't get Rogue.
Sure, and that's something that hopefully we see as they. The long rumor now is that once we get past Secret Wars, we're getting the mutant era of Marvel, where we start seeing more of the X-Men characters getting introduced, as they've slowly been now. And rumors are the next big Avengers movie is going to be Avengers versus X-Men. That's one of the big heavy rumors that's coming out. So the chance to introduce newer versions of these characters, no matter who's playing them. I've heard some grumblings that they were possibly talking to what's her name, Alexandra Daddario, about potentially playing Rogue. Like, that was one that I had seen kind of thrown about a little bit, which would be interesting. But I'm hoping that whenever they do introduce that character, it is like more of that comic book, awesome, female fighter that you talk about. That's, not the damsel teenager in distress that they kind of gave us in the Fox movies.
Her character's always been great about that balance, that she can fly. She's very strong. She's not someone you can underestimate, but she also can never touch anybody. So there is that emotional dynamic that she feels alone and separated from everybody else, but at the same time, she can destroy an entire army on her own. But we just got a crying teenager most of the time. Like, I just want to see that great dynamic and that back and forth between the super strong character that's also very weak in some points. Like, she has that great balance of, like, she's so strong, but she's also, very weak as well. Like, X-Men 97 season 1 did a fantastic job of bringing her back, continuing her from, the series before, but also giving her a great range of being very strong, angry, formidable, but also showing the, how she was weak with Magneto and how she cared about Gambit and how she still dealing with frustrations of not being able to touch the people she cares about. So I want to see that great dynamic in live action.
Absolutely. And I'm gaining more confidence in the, Marvel having the, the bandwidth to do that now that they have the rights to these characters again, that you're going to see that proper care being given to these characters. And hopefully we get that, significantly better representation in movies moving forward. So hopefully, whenever they get that character, they knock it out of the park, and I'm more than confident that they're going to be able to do so. But I want to move on to another show that, we've been following closely and we are going to review next week is House of the Dragon. Came out and announced this week that season 4 is going to be the last season of the show. Season 3 is going to air sometime between late 2025, early to mid 2026 is what they're guesstimating by the time that season's coming out. And then it'll follow up subsequently with season 4, which will be the last. Obviously, like we mentioned at the top in the intro, it's not the last that we're going to see of the Game of Thrones universe. There's many things in the works, including the spin-off series that they announced, The Night of the Seven Kingdoms, that they just announced as well. So lots of things still to come, but I've really been enjoying House of the Dragon. It keeps a lot of the, the tone and the seriousness of Game of Thrones without a lot of the hokey stuff that we got to see at the end of the series run, unfortunately. But I've really been enjoying the quality of these episodes that they've given us in the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the character development and that dynamic between the two sides have been really good. It did feel, which we'll talk about when we do our season 2 recap of, this last season was only 8, and then George kind of talked about he felt to do it properly, it would need to be at least 4 10-episode seasons, but we only did 8 this season, so it did kind of feel like it could have used those 2, but I have been really enjoying it, and yeah, to see that we're getting to the end, but by the time they probably get it done, it's going to be like 2027, 2028 before we get that final season, because of how it takes them like a year to shoot, and then you have all the editing and all the special effects they have to do for it too. So, and we still got to wait before it's over with. But I am really looking forward. They did put out a trailer for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, so that's kind of 100 years after House of the Dragon, 100 years before Game of Thrones. So it's kind of right in the middle. So it can kind of go without, because we already kind of know what happens, but we don't, we haven't seen everything that's happened, but. It's going to be interesting to see how they continue this on, because I think there's also some animated properties that they're looking at doing. And so yeah, it's not going to be the end of the Game of Thrones universe for a long time.
No, and it's exciting because, there are significant time jumps between these series. So there's a lot of gaps and a lot of stories you can tell to kind of fill in those gaps and, focus on not just the main battles that we have here, but there's a lot of other different avenues that you can explore story-wise that, it can make for some very interesting stories. I know you and I are both fans of, a lot of pieces that take place during this time in this era of, knights and, just that medieval, type of storytelling. We really enjoy that.
I'm definitely a sucker for those stories.
Absolutely. And, Game of Thrones being as great as it was, last season notwithstanding, but House of the Dragon being on par in a lot of ways with it, that, this whole world, the people that are making these shows really have a good grip on, telling these high quality stories that do get on a little bit of the crass side, but they do it in a way that makes sense because, it is a more, I don't want to use the word edgy, but it's a more grittier time period. You know what I mean? These are rough characters going through very rough things, and it's a lot of fun. It's really good. I really enjoy it, and I'm excited to see where they go with these last 2 seasons because it does kind of leave us in a place with season 2 to set up a very interesting season 3 that we're going to talk about when we do our review next week. But I'm excited to see where they go in the final 2 seasons.
Yeah, because especially season 3, we've kind of already got hints of what it's going to be, especially at the end of season 2 of what we're left with, that it's just going to be one huge season of fighting and battling and everything else. But, yeah, what is season 4? Is it going, follow whoever's the victor? Or is there really a victor? And because we don't exactly, I haven't read all the books, but we know through Game of Thrones and a lot of other stories of who survived and who didn't and all that, but it's going to be interesting to see what we actually see out of these battles and how season 4 ends, and if they end up doing something that follows up, maybe it bleeds into the next season of the A Night of the Seven Kingdoms series, that maybe they touch on more of what happened during that time period 100 years ago, that what's been passed down, because they could still kind of continue some of those story points in different shows if they feel like we need to have more history. Because if you watch season 2 of the House of Dragon, we did get a few looks at some Game of Thrones items, so it's not out of the question that we could still see a lot of blending of these stories, because it's one gigantic story over hundreds of years that's being told here.
Yeah, you see where the power in those realms winds up with Game of Thrones. So you kind of know where they get there. It's just how they get to that point. That's the story that they're trying to tell, and it is going to be interesting to see how they shake out, because it's always fun. Like when you go back in like a House of Dragon per se, you hear these names of these families that are very prominent in the Game of Thrones series. Like obviously House of Dragon is significantly heavy in the Targaryen family, but you also have like ventured into the Stark family that much, or the Tyrell family, or like you get a little bit of Hightower, and there's all these different family dynamics that you can really kind of dive into the history of and telling things from their perspectives.
Even a brief touch on the Wall, which is kind of a character in itself, even though it's tied to the Starks, it's kind of its own character because of everyone who's gone through there, and we got everyone on the other side of the Wall as well. So it is a character of its own.
It really is, and we'll see where they continue to go with these stories as we start wrapping up some of these shows and seeing what they branch off and start telling about next, because there's a lot of really interesting stories that I think they could tell if they want to go down those roads.
Jumping over into D23, so D23, big Disney event going on this weekend.
Huge.
A lot of different stories coming out of it. So we're going to touch, it's kind of just going to jump from story to story here, because there wasn't a whole lot of heavy news, but a lot of stuff was announced. So one of the first things that they showed that we got to see was Toy Story 5. So we got our first little glimpse. We got Bonnie underneath the sheet with a tablet. So it looks like we're going to be going about how electronics have changed kids. I know my kids are addicted to screens and everything else. I was too, with my NES and Super Nintendo and everything else. But it's going to be interesting to see that dynamic of how the screens have changed, how kids play with toys. But there was also something interesting in that screenshot, because Woody was there. And if you remember Toy Story 4, Woody is gone from the group, but he's back. So there's some part of this story that we're going to get that's going to bring Woody back into the group.
Of course.
And see how that goes. I'm still holding out hope on that. I've brought it up several times of these toys end up going back to Andy to be given to his kids. So maybe Bonnie's got her tablet and she's not interested in toys anymore, and they end up giving them, to Andy on that baby shower, and it goes to his kids, and just we get that final shot of him looking in a box and seeing all his toys right there. And it's what I hope to see. But it's interesting they're going to talk about the more modern with the kids of how electronics is taken over.
Yeah, and it definitely affects, how kids play now, and, how important toys are to kids now, especially with the technology that they have available at their fingertips now, which can be a good and a bad thing depending on how you look at it, right? So it's going to be fun to see that story that they tell there. There's the wonderful thing about D23 is it's all-encompassing with all the Disney properties, so you get news on animated features, you get news on, I'm going to say Netflix because we're going to talk about Daredevil, and it's still one of my favorite shows ever. But you get the Marvel news as well. Like, it's very integrated with everything. And they did talk about, Frozen 3 is another one that they talked about. Zootopia 2 is another one that they talked about.
Which are really
very fun casting. Go ahead and tell it.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off on it, but I was like, I'm really happy to see Ki-Hu Kwan. His resurgence is back, and he's going to be playing like a snake character in there called Gary. Yeah. So that should be a lot of fun to see him come into Zootopia and join the cast there, because I can't help but cheer for the guy, because Absolutely. I mean he was big as a child actor, and then you had Everything Everywhere All at Once bring him back. Brilliant film. Got the Oscar and everything else. I could just love to see his resurgence, because he seems like just such an incredibly nice guy. And he was part of the Fox X-Men universe too, because he was a fight coordinator on the Fox X-Men movies and stuff. So it's just, I had to jump in there because I wanted to say how much I love seeing him continue to get big roles. And he was in Loki. I just love seeing him get more and more big roles here.
And I love the promotional poster that they did for it. I know you sent it to me, but the parody of Deadpool and Wolverine with the Zootopia characters, which was hilarious. I love
Dead Mule and Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine and Dead Mule, which was hilarious. I love seeing stuff like that. So they had talks about those movies. Obviously, we also got news that we'll get into later on about other movies. But I want to pivot because I'm so excited for this show that they gave us a really good panel and glimpse into Daredevil Born Again.
That's all we have time for.
Yeah, see, this is what he does to me. I get excited about something and he kills it dead. But no, we got a really a deeper look into the show with a new trailer that they showed footage of that kind of gives us more insight as to what we're going to see with the show. That it's confirmed it's dropping in March, so March of 2025. We are getting this. I can't put into words how excited I am for this show. It's one of my favorite shows ever. That I've talked about it ad nauseum on this show, about my love for this show on Netflix, and now that they finally, seem like they've gotten a handle on the story they want to tell. It looks like the Netflix show that I love, at least the aesthetic in the trailer that they've shown. All of the characters that we love from that show are back in a way that looks to be very interesting, with the addition of some new characters too.
It's kind of weird they decided not to release the trailer yet that they showed at D23, but they were in an arena. There's plenty of people who captured footage of it, so you can find it online to watch, which we did. And yeah, the trailer looks very gritty, bloody. We got to see Matt Murdock and Kingpin talking, sitting at a table with the little cackle and other their dynamic is, and Vincent D'Onofrio has been a fantastic Kingpin, and we got to see a little bit of the Punisher, and we got White Tiger, and we have Muse, and so we got to see quite a lot, and it definitely looks a lot more back towards the Netflix series, which I'm excited about. And we actually even got, I think right before D23, got confirmation that they're starting to film the second half or the second season of Daredevil Born Again here within a month or so.
Yeah, and it's going to roll right into it. So it feels like we're not going to have a significantly long wait in between seasons, which I'm thrilled about, because I've been so happy for this project once they announced that they were bringing it back. It has that aesthetic of the Netflix show. I'm so excited for what they tell. It kind of looks like, there's going to be some interplay, like you said, between Kingpin and Daredevil, but there's that, it looks like they're kind of maybe trying to have a little bit of an understanding between them, because there's a scene of them sitting in a diner across the table from each other, and he's like, I'm going to keep my eye on you, like, as, it's looking like, based on his appearances in Echo, which we also have reviewed, so go back in our archives, but it looks like he's going to start moving more towards political aspirations again, where he's maybe trying to become mayor of New York, and that story, but it appears that, Daredevil's like, if I keep my eye on you, are you going to play nice, kind of thing? And he's like, and then, in perfectly beautiful, the Kingpin form turns it back on Daredevil, and it says, well, who's warning me about this? Is it Matt Murdock, or is it your darker half? Which is an amazing line.
Sits there.
An amazing line, because you deal with, like, how Daredevil ended. He's really struggling with wanting to have both lives independent of each other in a lot of ways, where he is this, really good attorney, Matt Murdock, and he's also doing the dirty work. Like the tagline in the trailer is, the devil's work is never done, right? So as much as he wants to be Matt Murdock, he knows there's always a part of him that always will need to be Daredevil, despite how much he, resents that part of himself. He still embraces it. And it's such a fun character dynamic that character has that really resonates with me. And they've been telling this story for years in such a beautiful way that I'm excited to see where Disney picks up with it.
You even got Kamala's dad making an appearance in here for Miss Marvel, so he's going to be in, and he even commented about, what kind of lawyer are you? And, kind of that same dynamic line we got from the last Spider-Man film of, what kind of lawyer are you? A good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't wait to see, like, everything looks dark and gritty. Getting John Bernthal back as the Punisher, getting, Foggy and Karen and everybody back for it. Like, it does seem like the stop and the reboot that they decided to do on this show is going to be well worth it, at least from that initial trailer and information. Like, I just hope it sticks to what made, the Netflix series was so incredible. Like, they seem like they pivoted back to, like, all right, that worked really well. Let's not try to mess with it that much.
I'm going to nerd out one more time before we talk about another show, before we move out. There is a scene in the trailer, if you get to watch it, where it has 5 different Daredevil cowls, like the mask that he puts on, and they're different versions of the different comic book versions of Daredevil, and they're all different colors, different aesthetics, and it does look like the main suit he's going to be wearing is the classic Daredevil comic book accurate suit. For the most part, it's not going to be the bright red, but it's more the darker red tone that you're used to from, the Daredevil Netflix series. So
yeah, because She-Hulk, we got him showing up in the yellow and red, which didn't go over as well with most people, which I got to look back at the trailer to see if that helmet was in there or not. I can't remember it was, because we had the black, we had the silver, gray, white one, we had a couple red and black, but I don't remember seeing the yellow and red.
Yep, so it's exciting to see that. I'm day one going to be excited to see that show when it comes out. It is going to be appointment viewing for me. I wish they would drop every episode at once because I would definitely take vacation time to watch the entire series in one sitting, but it feels like it's going to be a weekly drop when it does come out in March, and we very much will be covering that week by week when it does come out. So very excited for that.
Yeah, I don't think you need to, but I am going to go back and rewatch those Netflix 100%. Marvel series just because they're so good. Iron Fist and Luke Cage were kind of a little lesser. I don't think they did as well with the characters as they should have, but Punisher and with the Daredevil series was so good.
Fantastic.
And Jessica Jones was really good.
We love John Bernthal anyway, and he's just an amazing Frank Castle. Happy to see him back in the show too, so we get the Punisher back properly, and I'm so hyped for it.
Oh, I am excited. But more news from D23. So Pixar did announce a brand new property called Hopper. So it's kind of an odd one where a girl puts her brain in a robot, which I think was like a beaver or something like that. Sure. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out, because they've kind of talked after a few of the more original films haven't done as well, but a lot of that was due to COVID and just not putting them out in theaters, that they do have something new coming out. But they did also announce that The Incredibles 3 is in the works, so we're getting a new Incredibles movie, which it makes sense, especially with superheroes doing good and more sequels doing good, that they're going back to The Incredibles.
Incredibly popular movie. I can't. Yeah, I know. That's so terrible. I apologize. But it's a very popular movie series that we keep talking about. If it's successful, they're going to go back to the well, right? Hopefully, it keeps up with the same quality as the first two. I love the first two films. Both are really well done. The original Incredibles is probably top 10 animated film of all time for me, just in how good the storytelling was. It was such an original idea at the time, like a superhero family, like all and stuff, and it was done in such a brilliant way. I really enjoyed 2 as well. 2 is up there for me, but now that they're coming out with a third one, it got a big reaction from people. People do seem to be very excited about that one. It was one of the bigger reactions that people got from what I saw that were, taking videos and stuff of the announcement.
And that you have Brad Bird behind it again, who's a legend at Pixar. Absolutely, to have him be behind it is pretty big too.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to see that I wonder how far in the process they are with that, but it's definitely one that's going to make a ton of money when it comes out again, because those films are very, very popular for sure.
One of the bigger surprises is that we learned that Mandalorian Grogu has been filming for a couple weeks. So it seems like Fantastic Four with Pedro has started the same time as Mandalorian Grogu. And they showed off a little bit of footage, which I wasn't able to find or see much on it. But they said it showed like Mandalorian Grogu and an AT-AT or something like that. And we got to see that Zeb from the animated series and everything. He got a brief live action view, but he's going to be a part of the movie as well. So it's interesting to see that they're already showing off footage, because I think they said the next D23 won't happen until basically the movie's coming out, because of how long it takes they do these. So that was kind of interesting that we got a little screenshots and footage and information on that.
Yeah, and it kind of confirms our theory about Pedro's involvement with the movie. Obviously, if you've watched The Mandalorian, you know that for a minute he was there without his helmet on, but he, Din Djarin took that vow to recommit himself to the Mandalorian ways where they don't take their helmets off. So he's kind of reconfirmed in that, which is a very easy way to write a man out if he doesn't have to physically be on set to lend his voice to the show. So they are able to simultaneously, which is probably smart, shoot the film while Pedro is filming Fantastic Four, that this movie can go ahead and be shot, and, Pedro can come in and do his, line reading and things like that for that character.
He's just going to be so busy.
That man is in so much right now, because you still got, obviously, with The Last of Us Season 2 coming out, you've got this, you've got just so many other, you got Gladiator coming out later this year that he was into. The man's in everything. God love him. Like, he is, you want to talk about striking while the iron's hot. Between Jeremy Allen White and Pedro Pascal, they're in, if it's not one in something, it's the other, it feels like. And, good for them. But I'm excited to see this movie finally come out. We've love The Mandalorian,
Yep.
you know, in its entirety so far, and we're very excited for that film to see kind of how that story winds up wrapping up, because it's not going to go on much longer. I don't even know if they're going to do another season beyond the film.
Yeah, that's the
It's
only
kind of
thing
been
they
up in
haven't
the air.
given us, that if we're going to return to series or if this will wrap it up. Because we did kind of get confirmation a while ago that they're going to wrap kind of the whole Ahsoka Mandalorian universe up with a movie itself. So we don't know how much longer we're going to get the Mandalorian. We probably got at least one more season of Ahsoka to go. So yeah, we'll see what end up happening after this movie, if this is it. Because you figure if they go from series to a movie, that's normally to say goodbye and finalize that it's kind of done. So yeah, it sounds like there's still a possibility, but I have a feeling the series or the movie might be it and the series is over with.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what other information comes out about that. But excited to see that movie. You know, Zeb being in it is awesome, because like you and I both love the animated series as well. And you know, getting that movie is gonna be it's gonna be epic. I know it. They've done such a good job taking care of that character and that story and that universe that's going to be a very popular one when it does make its way into theaters, and I can't be more excited for that. I know another one that came out in kind of keeping with the Star Wars theme, they did drop a trailer for the Skeleton Crew show, which looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I know when Jude Law was attached to it, it sounded like it was going to be more of an adult-oriented series, like, you know, we've had with Andor, which they announced Andor Season 2 as well, but we had the show that we just recently reviewed that we had mixed opinions on, The Acolyte, and you know, it felt more adult-centric, but then we get the trailer, and it's much more of a kids type adventure.
I completely forgot that it was going to be about kids, because all I remember about is Jude Law in this, and we didn't get a whole lot of information. Maybe they did announce it, but I just completely forgot. But it kind of looks like Goonies in space. It gave me a very old, like, Amblin Entertainment, E.T., Goonies type of thing, which I'm all excited for. Like, it looks really good, and it looks like they have some kid actors who could carry things along, but the action, special effects, like, everything looked really solid in it. We just hope that, you know, the story plays out really well, where I think it's very beginning, I think December 3rd, around there was a release date for that. So I'm looking forward to checking it out, but yeah, I completely forgot that it's based around kids.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm not going to lie, I don't remember reading anything about it being based around kids, and it looks like a ton of fun. So it's going to be fun when that series finally drops. There's so much news coming out of D23. It's still literally going on as we're recording this. We usually record on Sundays, but we're recording on Saturday this week, and there's still a lot of things coming out that we're probably not going to be able to touch on. But one of the things that really excited me is they announced, you know, the movie Tron Ares, which is going to be the next iteration in the Tron series, and Nine Inch Nails are going to be doing the music for that, which is very exciting.
Yeah, well, we had Daft Punk to do the Tron Legacy, so now we got Nine Inch Nails, which Trent Reznor has done a lot of soundtracks lately, but instead of it being him and his partner, it's Nine Inch Nails being it. Awesome. So, but you've also got Jared Leto is, you know, starring in it, so maybe you thought 30 Seconds to Mars or something would have a part of it, but I'm mixed on my excitement for Tron Ares, because I enjoyed Legacy enough, but it had some problems and issues, and I'm curious to see what kind of story that they're going to tell. They did kind of mention that they're going to bring these characters into the real world, so hopefully, you know, it does well how long they spend in the real world, because most that you go into Tron to see is the bright neon glowing crazy over the top video game world. So we'll see exactly how that works out, but having Nine Inch Nails doing the music for it is definitely gonna give it a different feel than Daft Punk did for Tron Legacy.
Worst case scenario, the movie's not good. I'm sure the soundtrack's gonna be fantastic, because I love Nine Inch Nails. Trent Reznor's a musical genius, in my opinion. He's written so much amazing music over the years that I'm excited that they're at least attached to that. So, good movie or not, the soundtrack's going to be fantastic, which I'm all for. I'm all for a good soundtrack. But we've also got a lot of other stuff, and I know we want to touch on these fairly quickly, but there were some other trailers that dropped. They showed a trailer for the live-action Snow White movie.
That one's had a lot of controversy behind it. I think it filmed 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, and it's finally
they had to go back and do a lot of reshoots, because they kind of... The dwarves were more like a band of bandits, and that did not go over well. So now we have CG dwarves in the trailer. I'm still not sure how I feel about it. Like, it's gone through so many reshoots and changes and edits that it feels like they possibly still missed the mark with this movie. But the trailer looked okay, but it also looked like something that just, I don't know. Did we need... They've done a lot of these live actions, but Snow White seems to be one that maybe they dropped the ball on.
Yeah, we'll see what it looks like when it comes out. Obviously, we'll still go see it and, check it out, but that's another, there's a couple properties that they touched on in this D23 that, have been more or less on the shelf for a minute. They're finally putting out Agatha All Along. That was shot a while ago. We also got another look at Ironheart, another Marvel property that has been sitting on the shelf. They shot that, 3 years ago probably as well?
We've talked about it a lot. We've been waiting for this to come out.
We finally got our first look and first trailer that was shown. I also don't think they've dropped that one out publicly, but you can find the video for it. It looks really good. I'm excited for it to kind of... There's an interesting story that they're being told. I love that Anthony Ramos is in the movie as well. I love Anthony Ramos, not in the movie.
In the series, yeah.
In the show, but love him as an actor. We just saw him in Twisters, a prominent role in that, but he is going to be in that series as well. And that's finally something that we've been waiting for forever, and they're finally bringing it out. So it looks like they're finally starting to close up and get some of this stuff out that they've had a little bit backlogged for a while, that they're finally getting done.
We did also get a look. So Avatar 3 now has a new title of Fire and Ash. So, of course, the second one was all about water. Now we're getting... So it seems like each one's going to be about a different element. And so we got Fire and Ash coming up next, which you said could be a very emotional movie, could deal with a lot of different emotional aspects. And those movies have been incredible to look at, visually from a CG standpoint and storytelling. It's been pretty amazing to see those. So I am looking forward to seeing the third one. It'll be, I think, late 2025 that we see that. But yeah, that we got the title and a brief look at that. But probably the one that surprised me the most out of this, because Fantastic Four has been filming for about a week or two now. Right after San Diego Comic-Con, they left that and went to film. They put up some footage and some stills of the family sitting at a table, and there's Johnny Storm in full Fantastic Four get up, and this is original blue and white. It looked really good, but they've already shown us one of the costumes.
And I think that's going to show just how much of an effort they're going to put into this. The big concern has been, we've had so many misses with the Fantastic Four over the years. Is Disney going to give us a proper version? Is Marvel going to give us, the proper version of these characters? And it looks like they are definitely going to meet the comic aesthetic of the Fantastic Four, very much true to comic suit that we saw in those still images. I'm beyond excited to see this movie when it comes out. They're going to play a big part. I love the cast. I love all four of the individuals that are going to be playing them in the movie. And it was impressive that they were able to put that footage out very quickly, because typically, when movies are that early in production, we get nothing except maybe hey, we're live on, a quick, hey, we're on set and just wanted to say hi.
Here's a dark, mysterious photo that you can't see a whole lot in.
Yeah, something to not really decipher for a while, but they were just here it is. Get excited because it's coming. And it was really cool for them to drop that information on.
And I also don't know if you saw or not, but they already played the main theme from the movie. Yeah, so before they showed the footage and stuff, they played it, and it sounded good. It's in a mix of kind of 60s type of music with, very kind of electronic, but also old, but they got a little dramatic in there too. So, but yeah, we've already got a look at the suits, and we've already got the main title track. So they're really putting a lot of work into this, even though they've been filming for 2 weeks. We know a lot of pre-production stuff goes, but yeah, it still just surprised me to see him sitting there in the Fantastic, because everyone else, Reed is, Pedro's got the old sweater on and everything, and you have Eben, who's kind of looking just mad and grumpy over to the side. They all looked really good, but I was just surprised, just straight out of the blue, there's a Fantastic Four suit.
Love it. I'm so happy. I'm so ready for that movie. I'm very, very excited. It's going to be one of the most anticipated movies of next year for a good reason. We also got, kind of keeping in the Marvel theme a little bit, because Marvel does have such a heavy presence in this, they did announce that What If Season 3 is going to be the last season of the show as well. You're going to get some integration from characters like Shang-Chi, like Ironheart and Moon Knight. They're all going to be in that season as well, but it does seem to wrap up. I've really enjoyed the first 2 seasons of this show. It's a fun kind of kind of take on possible stories that could be told about, characters that we already know in different ways. Like, I know one of the more popular ones was the Peggy Captain Britain kind of
Captain Carter.
Yeah, Captain Carter, and that she's a very heavy figure in these stories, and it's been a ton of fun to watch.
Yeah, and we also got a bit more confirmation on one of the what if spin-offs, which is Marvel Zombies, that kind of went along with that it's going to be a 4-episode event that is TVMA, so it's going to be very adult and graphic, and there doesn't seem like they're going to be holding, because we did get a zombies episode in What If, I think season 1 was, but they're definitely going all out for this Marvel Zombie series. 4 episodes, hopefully maybe they're about an hour long, but it seems like they're going all out, and we might see Shang-Chi and a few other characters show up, in Marvel Zombies. But yeah, we've got What If ending. We've got because I think Zombies is only supposed to be a limited event. Like, it's going to be these 4 episodes, and they're not planning to do any more. But yeah, that was kind of big to see that they're already ending What If, and maybe they're going something, because there was kind of a mystery as well. Again, the panel and everything's going on right now. Maybe they announce it, but there was talk that they've already spent $20 million on another animated property that they haven't announced yet. So we've at least gotten, X-Men 97 season 2 and 3. We've got, What If and Zombies, and we have another Marvel animation property coming out that hopefully we get some more information on here from D23.
Hoping it's the continuation of the Spider-Man the animated series that we had talked about, right?
Essentially,
so that would be fun for them to do. But yeah, they're killing it in the animation game. And speaking of X-Men 97, we got some news that season 2 is going to feature the character Warlock. It's going to be one of the main characters that's going to be in that series as well. You're going to see more of the Grant Morrison suit designs as well, which is very interesting. A
lot of yellow, a lot of big X's across them. So it's definitely interesting designs to go with. It's going to be a different
take on it for sure. And we're very much looking forward to when that season is coming out as well, because as you can go back and check in our archives, we absolutely loved season 1 of X-Men 97. It's high rated for us, definitely. Something we've really enjoyed.
Yeah. There's an Eyes of Wakanda animated series going as well, which they announced there will be an Iron Fist in that series. So this will be the first kind of MCU appearance of Iron Fist since the Netflix series, which Iron Fist was kind of one of the more lower rated ones of those series on Netflix. But it's kind of interesting that we are getting them diving back into Iron Fist, at least in animation form. But there's kind of talk with Shang-Chi 2 that we could see an Iron Fist showing up in there as well. So we'll see if it's the same actor, if they change. There's been rumors of maybe they take the Colleen character and they make her Iron Fist and bring her in to Shang-Chi or something. But yeah, we're getting Iron Fist kind of coming back, and hopefully we get a good treatment from Marvel with Iron Fist in the animated form and in live action.
Yeah, and that character, for whatever reason, I never understood a lot of the controversy around it. The character's name is Danny Rand. He's not... I won't go into that. We won't dive too much into that. But yeah, that was kind of a very mixed, very strong, polarizing opinions on those Netflix shows. But it's exciting to see they're bringing that character back, because Iron Fist is kind of a pretty important Marvel character that interacts with a lot of these bigger comic book names, especially with the Daredevils and things like that. So it's exciting to see that character kind of reemerge and reappear, and we'll see what they do with it, whether it's in animation, like we said, or live action when they do ultimately bring that character back at some point. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. And then, like, one of the last things they announced that I wanted to touch on too was they announced one of the next projects that Dwayne Johnson's going to be working on, which is a Monster Jam movie.
A Monster Truck, which I didn't see if it was, I guess, a movie or a TV show, if it was live action or if it was animated, because they kind of showed glimpse of Monster Jam going on and doing jumps and everything else, but I couldn't tell if it was going to be animated or live action. But yeah, this is the first, because we talked about in previous episodes that he signed a big first look deal. $7 production company signed a first look deal with Disney. So the first project we get is a monster truck, but he was also there for, got Moana 2 was shown off, and he's also doing the live action Moana. So there's quite a bit that he's going to be doing at Disney, but we'll be seeing him for, quite a long time. And I know my kids would be mad at me if I don't touch on it. It was very brief, but we got, so next summer we have a Lilo and Stitch live action movie going on. So we kind of got a video. Again, this wasn't fully released. You had to kind of go see the footage, but it looked like Stitch was running around backstage and he goes up and hits a button, and then they show the Disney blue screen like they're restarting, and 626 and D23 start fading, and then the live action, which of course it's all CG, Stitch jumps out, and he actually looks rather good, and it seems like they have the voice actor, the original voice actor for Stitch there, because he sounded great, but he looked really good, really fuzzy and furry, so I'm really looking forward to it. I know that's going to be a big thing for me and my family. We call our car Stitch. We have Stitch all over the place. Like, Lilo and Stitch is really big in our family, and I can't wait to see kind of what they do with that live action version. Hopefully it's done proper. At least with Stitch, he looks really good, so hopefully the acting and the story they do really works well in live action.
I have a feeling that movie is going to do really well for Disney. Like, that's a very popular property that I wouldn't say had the biggest box office draw, honestly, but I think as the years gone on, the popularity of that movie has like increased like over time, and it's a really high quality film.
Yeah, because they've done a lot of like spinoffs. There's a couple different movies that went kind of straight. They had a series, so it's quietly had a lot of stuff done for it.
And I know it's highly integrated into like the theme parks and things like that too, and it's had a lot of staying power. So that's one that definitely got the internet talking, when they made that announcement about that as well. I've seen a couple mixed opinions on it, but that's the internet for you. But as far as like what that Stitch looked like, but from what I saw, I thought it looked good as well, and that's definitely going to be
a little blue alien creature. Like,
they
made him look as cute and good as I think they could in live action.
Right, and it's definitely going to make a ton of money when that comes out, for sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, there was a lot of stuff announced at D23, so there's, like I said, there's still stuff going on, so if you want to check out anything else when it comes to Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, check out all of the news and stories coming out, because, it continues through the rest of the day today that we're filming, so we got some more animation stuff coming out. I was kind of expecting to see maybe Shang-Chi 2 show up and get some more information on that, but didn't really get anything there other than Shang-Chi is going to be showing up a lot in the animation properties.
Right, which is great.
So there's still a lot more to go, but it looked like it was a pretty decent D23 where they announced a lot of stuff, but it was more on the Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm side.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a good bed for information. It's definitely an event I would love to attend one day, for sure. If you have stories, if you've gone, please tell us how you feel about it. But you seem like you get a lot of really cool first look things at stuff that's coming down the pipeline. So it's a very exciting time for them with a lot of the stuff that they have coming out that they've announced, and it's definitely a lot of stuff to keep our eyes on.
So moving on to our TV breakdown of the week. So we have Batman Caped Crusader over on Amazon Prime. So if you're not very familiar with this is a new animated property by Bruce Timm, who did Batman the Animated Series back in the 90s, which still to both of us is one of the greatest animated series of all time.
Brilliant.
Like just the animation, but it was also very dark with the story, and getting mixed between being kind of a kid show to being, all right, this is a bit more than kids. So, Batman Caped Crusader is a spiritual successor to it. So it's taking place back in the 50s and 60s. We've got more of the noir detective era. It definitely pays a big homage to that time with the style. I mean, it definitely it continues the animation style of Batman the Animated Series, but very touched up and, different. But I really, really enjoyed Batman Caped Crusader.
I enjoyed it too. It's 10 episodes, but you get this like what I really like is like it's a continuing story throughout the entire. There's threads that started in the first episode that kind of continue on through the entire season, which I really appreciate, because even in a lot of cases like Batman the Animated Series, you don't really get that story continuation too much unless it's a character reappearing later for other things. But you have this continual thread of obviously the progression of Batman and what is very much earlier Bruce Wayne, like you say, detective type Batman, who's still like, he's still, not really dealing with the death of his parents so much, but he's in full Batman mode, right? So he's very much into his journey as Batman, but not in a version like we've seen that is a more well-established Bruce Wayne. I think he's still the young party playboy Bruce Wayne that still he's a bit of an emotional robot. And I think if that was any criticism I could have of it, is he's a little bit more like stilted and not as much of a dynamic personality as several other Bruce Wayne characters that we've had, but he feels he's very straight-laced in a lot of ways. But I really enjoy a lot of the stories they tell. I thought the story that they tell the entire season with Harvey Dent was great. His quest to become mayor and ultimately leads to, we're going to spoil things when we talk about some of it, but like, if you know Harvey Dent, he eventually becomes Two-Face, and you get that point, with him trying to become mayor, and some things happen that ultimately lead to him becoming Two-Face. And there's introductions to other villains that you know of, particularly like Harley Quinn. It makes several appearances in this
which is definitely a different version. Like it's similar but different because it's Harley without Joker.
And that's what I really appreciate.
Wow, yeah, until the last episode.
Wink and a nod of what that I want to touch on when we get to the end of this, because I have some thoughts about what the aesthetic of that character is going to look like, because it's very different from what we've seen in a lot of cases. Because he feels more menacing, but it does. It's a very darker, like not as campy version of this stuff. But a lot of the stories they tell in these 10 episodes are really good. Like there's a lot of different things going on, and it's told in a way like a similar characters with stories and perspectives that you haven't really seen yet, and it's a lot of fun. The animation is really good. If you're a fan of Batman the Animated Series, the aesthetic of the show is very similar. So it's not like a dark, it's not like a hard right turn from what you're used to seeing with that, which I appreciate because it feels like a more modern take of what Batman the Animated Series could have been. But they tell these stories with these characters in a really good way. That's a lot of fun. It's not too dark, but it's more TV-14. Like
there's language and there's violence.
There is some language. There is some violence. That's a little bit of a step up from Batman the Animated Series, but you don't lose that quality of storytelling that made Batman the Animated Series so good. I would rank it probably slightly under it just because I hold that show in such high esteem, but that also goes to show the amount of respect that I have for the show that they've given us so far. Like, I really, really dug this.
Yeah, I had just great hopes for it because you had Bruce Timm involved who did that. But you also, looking at the credits, you had Matt Reeves who's doing, his, Robert Pattinson Batman universe and everything, which we got the Penguin coming up from that. But you also got J.J. Abrams was a part of this as well. But yeah, it had underlying storylines, but a lot of the episodes were kind of those old detective serialized episodes. Like they were contained themselves, but they might have a little thread here and there. Like there are several episodes that were, kind of freestanding, but also kind of talked about how the police corruption, and you got Harvey showing up in a few and Harley in a few. But I love how it paid just a lot of respect to the old detective series of that time, because we're set in a different time period. It did seem like we also got a little cameo that never really got touched on of a Lois Lane from like the Fleischer area and all that we got a lot of respect for like the old detective, but also for Batman. And as you talked, that the Bruce Wayne was kind of a little thinner, but I think this was also continuing on that the idea that Batman is his true self while Bruce Wayne is the disguise. He is, and he's just playing that up like, oh, I'm just a playboy who likes to mess around a lot, and because he has to go through therapy because of punching and hitting somebody, and that therapy's with Harley, and she's trying to get him to open up, but he's just like, no, I'm good. All right, we're over with you. Sign this and move on. And I gotta say, the voice overall was good, and it's a me thing that I couldn't stop hearing H. John Benjamin, Archer and all that. It did have a very similar to it, and there was, he did do a different Bruce Wayne to his Batman at times, but like in the very first episode, which deals with the Penguin, but this time we've got a female Penguin with Oswalda and kind of what's going on there and it kind of sets up our underlying thread of crime and who's in the crime bosses and all that. But there was a point where his Batman and Bruce in that episode was exactly the same voice. It was the deep, dark, I'm Batman. Oh no, I'm Bruce Wayne, but I still sound exactly the same. It feels like he kind of accidentally kept with that, because in more later episodes, it is a very good mix that you have. But it's also hard to live up. And we've had a lot of different Batmans and stuff, but especially with the Batman in the Animated Series aesthetic to it, and having Bruce Timm, not having comparisons to Kevin Conroy, living up to Kevin's Batman and Bruce is very hard to do. But I thought he did a good job overall, other than my own issue with not being able to not hear H. Sean Benjamin as Batman through all that.
Yeah, I got that. I got that vibe as well. But yeah, I mean, you see a lot of the characters that you know in this universe, and you know, Detective Bullock. You get Commissioner Gordon, who's, you know, still kind of running the Gotham City Police Department, but he's kind of not due to, you know, some issues with the mayor that's running against Harvey Dent. You get Rupert Thorne, who's the big crime boss. You don't get the Falcone family in this necessarily. It's more Rupert Thorne in this version, who is more prominent in Batman the Animated Series. So it's fun to see them kind of go back to that crime family as opposed to the Falcone family, which is, you know, both big crime boss families in Gotham. But yeah, you get some fun one-offs. I really enjoyed the Ghost episode.
That was what I was going to talk about, because those, to me, felt, even though I enjoyed them, felt kind of out, because it got into more of the supernatural aspect of it. And while the others were more grounded with the Penguin and with Two-Face and all that, there was like 2 episodes that really dealt more with supernatural aspects, which I liked, but it also kind of took me a little bit out of it.
A little bit, but yeah, I'm more approaching that from one of my favorite animated movies of all time is Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which is absolutely brilliant. And it's, you know, Kevin Conroy as well. And it's such a good, like, done around the same time as Batman the Animated Series. And that animated movie is fantastic. If you've never watched it, I can't recommend it enough.
We went, last year we went and saw a reissue
we saw it in the theater. Like, it was a lot of fun. And I got some vibes of that from that a little bit. So kind of from a nostalgic place for me, kind of took me back to how I felt about that. It's not Mask of the Phantasm by any means, but the tone of that with is it really a ghost? Is it not? Kind of the supernatural stuff. I had fun with that episode. It was kind of a nice breakup in the season. That was kind of a more, I want to say more of an Alfred and Bruce bonding episode, because they don't have the same dynamic that you're used to seeing from, you know, Bruce and Alfred, which, you know, Alfred is an integral part in, you know, Batman being successful, and they still don't have the same, like, relationship through most of the season that you're used to seeing Batman and Alfred have, where Alfred still very much cares about Bruce, but Bruce is still, you know, Bruce is still Bruce. You know, they don't really bond like they have until like almost the end of the season. So hopefully you get to see a little bit of development in that relationship moving into season 2, which we have been confirmed we are getting. So I'm very excited about that.
That episode did give me a little kind of Scooby-Doo feeling. I was waiting for him to rip the mask off the ghost and it's Ra's al Ghul or something like that, or the landlord. Like it, just because it is set in the time period, which kind of fitting. Like it just gave me some feelings of Scooby-Doo to it. Like I'm waiting for him to reveal who it was, other than sticking heavily with the supernatural aspect of it.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times that I like to rag on shows that do this sometimes, that feel like a hard left a little bit from like a continual story. But for whatever reason, like I said, could be the nostalgia hitting me when I watched it and the mindset that I was in when I watched it. But I enjoyed it. And overall, though, the season was really good. I'm excited to see where they move forward with this, because at the end of the season, we do get a teaser for probably the next main villain that's going to be. And of course, it's the villain that we all, you know, that is synonymous with Batman, and it's the Joker, but it's the Joker in a way that we haven't really seen this version of the Joker really in the animated realm, or even like it's got a little bit of Heath Ledger Joker, but more serious feeling.
Kind of a little killing joke potentially in it. A little bit. He had a different look to him. He was definitely had, because you only got a brief glimpse at him, but it definitely seemed like, because all these characters that they introduced are various different versions that we kind of haven't seen before. Because even with Two-Face, you know, we're used from, you know, Batman the Animated Series, he's got the purple side and it's very heavy up, but this is more, you know, we saw more scarred, and even one I wanted to touch on, the episodes I really enjoyed, because I loved what they did with Clayface in the original Batman the Animated Series. You got the tortured actor who, is trying to keep going and all that, and you kind of touch on this as well. So you've got a tortured actor who's trying to keep up with the times and has this procedure done, but he's kind of more of almost like Phantom of the Opera kind of take on Clayface. But I really enjoyed what they did with Clayface, and like all these different versions. Like, we got the characters we know, but in definitely different versions of them that we haven't seen before, because this was like a very different Clayface than what we had in Batman the Animated Series. Same with Two-Face and Firebug. We got a lot of different versions of these characters, which was kind of nice and refreshing to see these different takes. So I am really curious to see what different take we get with the Joker.
Yeah, because he definitely feels like he's going to be more menacing, like you said, more probably killing Joker as opposed to it, because you get to see, he's doing his Joker experiments with the Joker chemicals and stuff like that, and you don't really get to see so much of his face as more of a dark outline of him, shrouded in mystery, and you get that full reveal that we're going to get in season 2 that I'm excited to see, that, where they move forward with this, and, you have your Harley Quinn out there on the lam and on the run, and is she going to come back? And you very much don't get the Harley Quinn that's in love with the Joker Harley.
It's definitely much more darker, twisted Harley that we got.
She's got some issues for sure. She's always had issues, but it's a much more serious tone to it. But I just love the tone of the entire series, the entire season, and it was like you said, different takes on this. Even the aesthetics of the characters look different. You get a different looking Harley than you usually see with the, all the red and black and the white makeup. You get a very more serious Harley, like sinister Harley, even in a way. Like when she full on dons, the attire that she has in her Harley, like her Harley Quinn, character, and even the simple subtle change that they make to Two-Face, which if you know the character Two-Face, his left side is usually the one that's scarred up in the versions that you see. And this one, it's a mirror image. His right side of his face is the one that's scarred in this one. So it's a different aesthetic, and just little subtle changes in a way that don't really take anything out of it for you, but they are presented, like we said, in a way that's different from what you've seen before.
The Two-Face is kind of a Jekyll and Hyde almost, because you see him struggling where, he's sitting at dinner with Bruce for the first time he's come out since he had the acid thrown on him, and he's being Harvey, but then there's this darker, what are they looking at? And they all hate me and all this. He goes very Two-Faced, but it's definitely going heavier in that
the schizophrenia.
That the schizophrenic, he kind of flips back and forth between Harvey and Two-Face. And I thought very Jekyll and Hyde, but I thought that was a great way that they handle that character as well.
Absolutely, and I want to see how that character evolves into season 2, because Harvey does play a very big role in this season, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out moving forward, because obviously he drops out of the running from mayor, but you see he's really embracing that darker tone of him, and you see that battle that he struggles with, and that's what makes that character so interesting. Everybody talks about the Joker and the interesting aspects of that character, which is absolutely brilliant. I think it's the best comic book villain of all time. But I would put Two-Face up there in the type of stories that you could tell with that type of character who deals with that, schizophrenic, multiple personality type characters, where it's two halves, like a good side and a bad side fighting, over control of this person. And it's fun to see that dynamic play out. And it was done really well for him when he, like you said, he's going out in public and he was you see the concern is, are they going to judge me? Well, they're definitely judging me. This guy's he says something nice to me, but he's a jerk, that kind of.
Very Gollum-like. Yeah. He switches between very quickly.
It's like that, very quickly, but it's written very smart.
Yeah, it's a great representation of it.
I really enjoyed the take on that character, and psychologically, I love diving into characters like that have those layers that, are told in a way that's it's so much fun to study those characters and what the inspiration is to make a character like that, and it's a lot of fun to see that character done so well. It's a lot of fun, and I hope that they dive more into that in his further descent into that character in season 2. So I'm very excited for it.
And I think it worked great for all the different takes they did on these villains, and even Batman of setting it back in, the 40s, 50s, 60s, where I forget the exact time frame, but going back into that era, because it really worked to be able to give us these different takes, give us a more adult take. Like I said, a lot of language, violence, even some deaths and stuff in the series, but it was also felt like a love letter to Batman the Animated Series by Bruce Timm. Like, there are so many kind of nods back. There's even some nods back to the first live-action Batman. Like, there's a map of Gotham that they go to, which was very much Adam West Batman map. So there's a lot of different Easter eggs you can find through kind of all the Batmans that have been done before.
Well, even they have the nod to the old bat phone, right? So it's like, how do I get a hold of you? Like, do you have and he very quickly cuts her off and tells her his phone number, like Detective Montoya, which was a lot of fun. So.
Even the Batmobile is kind of Batman the Animated Series, almost mixed with Matt Reeves's
a little bit,
kind of Batman vehicle there. Like, I even they make a joke. He's got a really cool car,
right?
Which he uses as a weapon in the series too, which was
ways, which is fun to watch. it's a fun show. We can't recommend it enough because you can catch all 10 episodes now on Amazon Prime. They dropped them all together at the same time. It's a very quick watch, so the episodes are only 23, 24 minutes if you don't watch the end credits. So it's a very quick watch. It's easily digestible. You can get through the series binging it very quickly. Can't recommend it enough that you check it out.
I'd have to say one last thing. There's 2 really good things that I thought it did. So the intro is very simple, but Batman the Animated Series had such an iconic opening. But it went very film noir.
Yes.
And I thought the opening was really great, but I also loved going back to the love letter of Batman the Animated Series. We get at the very end Batman standing on a rooftop getting unveiled by lightning, which is a big throwback to the animated series. I just love that aspect of throwing that in. But yeah, I can't say good enough things about Batman Caped Crusader. I think they did a brilliant job of doing a different take on Batman and his villain gallery, his rogue gallery and stuff. Like, it was very smartly done, more adult. And there wasn't an episode I could say I didn't like. Like, the whole series had me. I watched one. All right, I got to watch another. I was like hooked on wanting to watch everything. But it's also, as we've mentioned, we have a huge love and appreciation for Batman the Animated Series. Like, it's one of the greatest shows and animated shows ever created, because you had Mark Hamill's Joker and you had Kevin Conroy, but like, it was. Even then, it was dark stories, and it dealt with suicide and death and everything else. Like, it was such a series that was ahead of its time, and to see them kind of continuing that tone and love letter to it in this series, like, I am so glad that they've done this and that we're going to get more of it, because it was so brilliantly done, and it's one of my favorites that I've watched this year. It's up there with X-Men 97.
Agreed.
I just loved them going back and revisiting and showing that, hey, going back with X-Men 97 and doing Batman Caped Crusader as a kind of a love letter to Batman the Animated Series was just perfectly executed, perfectly done, and a great choice.
Absolutely. I've always said that, Marvel's got the best heroes, but DC's got the best villains, specifically Batman. Like you said, Batman's just got such a wide variety of interesting, different dynamics of villains, and I'm excited to see them hopefully introduce more of those villains into, the series as it moves forward.
I'd love to see how they could do a Mr. Freeze in that kind of style, because he's another just great villain. Has a darkness and heart and mystery behind it. Even doing a Riddler potentially as well. Like, yeah, there's a lot they can still do with a lot of these villains that they haven't touched on.
I think the perfect one to bring into this time period is Hush. Hush is one of my top 2 or 3 favorite Batman villains. Such an interesting character. I think Hush would be a great character to introduce to this aesthetic type of show. Hopefully they bring that character in. That would be awesome. I would love to see if they can make that happen.
Yeah, so Batman Caped Crusader, all episodes are available on Amazon Prime. We can't recommend it enough. It is so good. And I said it is a little bit more adult. Like, I wouldn't think maybe the really young kids might have a problem, but it is like TV 14 for most of it. So it's aimed more at teen or higher. But there are some episodes that are a little calmer and others that have more language and violence and even death in it. But it's so well done. We hope you go check it out, because it's well worth the watch.
Absolutely. So now we want to go into our film review of the week. We do have the film Borderlands. It's based on the popular video game. This one's starring Cate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, are the two main actors in this film. It's a take on this. I have mixed feelings about this movie because, you know, the aesthetic of the games are very, like, they're ones you don't normally see in video games, right? The aesthetic of the game is very different, but it has kind of that campy, over-the-top style that may not always necessarily play up well in a live-action sense as it would in a video game, but I don't know, man. Going and seeing this film, like, I didn't have very high expectations to begin with. How could I not forget Jack Black as Claptrap? But I didn't have the highest of expectations for this film, and I was just kind of left with kind of a, I don't want to say meh feeling to it, but I don't really lean strongly one way or the other versus, like I wouldn't say I hated the movie, but I wouldn't say I loved it either. It was just more like it was just an all right film.
This basically summed up exactly how I felt. Like, I came out of it like, that was okay.
Right.
But it wasn't good. It wasn't bad, but it just was like, I've played the series, and they've actually got a big sale on the games right now where you can go through, because you've got the three main, you've got the Tales of Borderland, and you also have the pre-sequel and everything in it. So there's quite a few games that you can play of it now. And yeah, as you said, with the aesthetics, it has a cel-shaded, very unique style that I kind of wish they would have tried with it, because in the end, it looked like the game, but it didn't. It kind of looked like a regular sci-fi action film. Bit, yeah. Like, it didn't have that uniqueness to the look, even though they tried to incorporate a lot of stuff in it. It just, yeah, like, I feel like Kevin Hart was miscast. Like, it's kind of hard to take him in a semi-serious role, and he was overall a very kind of a serious role, but also trying to do a straight man comedy aspect of it. Like, he had some jokes, but it was done in a very deadpan, straight way, which I just didn't feel worked for the character he was playing, but also in the movie as a whole, because he's also a very small statured guy that just, as this big military guy busting up a ship and taking out everybody and being this big hero, it just didn't feel that right. And Kate, fantastic actress, but she was very straight-laced in the movie too. Like, she's very serious, and then everybody else was over the top and crazy. So, like, which kind of fits Borderlands. You have a very big mix of crazy, over the top, and straight, but I don't know, the dynamic just didn't work that well for me, and it felt like it was just moving from one tentpole piece to another to another to another. Like, the story goes about that there was an alien race that had kind of put this vault on Pandora, on this planet, and everyone's been looking for the vault since they left and disappeared. So there's keys they have to go after, and there's also a third key, which, you know, turns out to be someone of their race to be able to open this door, which will give them all of their technology. Like, the world and the universe has evolved because some of the technology of theirs was still around and found, but we're kind of just thrown right into Cate Blanchett as a bounty hunter, and she gets pulled in to try to rescue the daughter of the head of this company who really wants the vault. But yeah, it fits the video game, but it doesn't, and it works as a movie, and it doesn't. So yeah, I'm so mixed on how I actually felt about it. Like, the reviews for it are not very good. Like, when we went into it, it's sitting at like 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, which we don't put all that much into the Rotten Tomatoes, but when something is sitting at 3%, it's like,
it's worth taking up notice for.
And it just, overall, it just felt like it was okay. Maybe at home with some more viewings or something might feel a bit better about it, because it kind of felt a little Fifth Element-y, but also trying to, it just, I don't know, it just didn't sit well with me, but I didn't hate it. I just was okay. That was a movie I watched.
But that's kind of the takeaway of the movie, though. But that's and I'm going to be completely honest. There's nothing in that movie that I really took home with me that I remember from it, really. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's not a good mark of a good movie. Obviously, it's one of those like, all right, I don't feel like I needed to rush out to see it in the theater necessarily, which is unfortunate because, you know, we always advocate for going and seeing and supporting these films in the theaters, which we did, but it was one of those that I walked out from and I'm like, I'm not really going to take a lot away from this movie. Like, it happened, they made it, like, it's not terrible. Like, don't don't get it twisted. Like, it's not as bad as a lot of people reviewing it on the internet are making it out to be, but it's definitely not going to win anybody's, favorite movies of the year awards or anything like that. It was just kind of all right. Like, the plot wasn't terrible. Like, I get they do a fine job of like just setting up what it is, and they don't really like deviate too much from that necessarily. Like, you have the goal of rescuing this girl while also assuming that she's this, prophesized person that can open the vault, and there's a little bit of a twist in there that, just kind of, I kind of low-key rolled my eyes out a little bit when it happened, but it was fine. But that's not the greatest, telling of, a movie. Like, I would love to sit up here and glow about things that I liked. I thought Jack Black as Claptrap was okay. I thought he was kind of a waste. A little annoying in some parts, but that's kind of that character in the games anyway. So if you played the games, Claptrap's just this wisecracking robot that's just kind of there for some laughs, but can help in a little bit. But it definitely felt very campy, very it's definitely not a movie that takes itself too seriously by any means.
Which is good for the games and stuff, yeah. But it just didn't hit those points.
It didn't hit like you'd want a movie to hit. Mm-hmm. Like it's fine. And sometimes when you're seeing a movie, that's not the worst thing you can say about it, really, but it's not going to be a movie that changes your life. You don't need to find some kind of deeper meaning. If you're looking for something we like to call it movie that I can go turn my brain off and watch and just kind of enjoy it for entertainment purposes, it does a fine job of providing that entertainment. It's under 2 hours. It's about an hour and 40 minutes. So it's not a particularly long movie. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't drone on. Like, it does fine in filling that time, but I didn't really take a whole lot away from it.
Yeah, I think two of the biggest issues I've had with it, the CG was a bit rough at times. You've had flying vehicles and other stuff that they did, and some things look good while other things look like really bad and off. But the other thing was that this is a very funny, over-the-top, campy game series, but I feel 99% of the jokes and the humor in the movie fell flat. It did not work. That's why I said, when you were talking about that Jack Black as Claptrap, kind of fail. Like, he had a couple funny lines that I chuckled at a little bit, but like, I think they went a little too over the top with Claptrap. But also, I just said the humor fell really flat. Nothing was that humorous or funny. Like, you could tell they're trying to be funny. I mean, there's like one scene with Jamie Lee Curtis is cleaning herself with a portable little electric shower thing, and everyone else is dirty looking at her like, oh, did you want to use it? And it was just so flat. Like, I think that's the biggest thing with the over-the-top acting and everything else with it. You expect the humor to be bigger, but so many people, the main stars, were playing it straight-laced and straight-faced that, just so much of the humor just fell so flat. Like I said, I can only remember a couple times that I slightly chuckled. There was nothing really I laughed about, and there was some stuff that was meant to be pretty humorous, but it just fell flat.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I think the theater that we were in felt the same way about the movie, because it was very quiet for that movie for a good chunk of it. Like, there weren't any laugh out loud moments that had people just kind of ha ha that kind of thing. Like, the humor didn't hit it. The dialogue's not the best. Not that you're going out and expecting like amazing dialogue or anything from these types of things, but it just, like I said, it's just fine. Like I said, I'm not really taking anything away from this movie, like taking it with me as far as like going back and thinking about what I didn't like. It was just like, I mean, yeah, sure, it didn't look the best, but that's okay. Like, I don't know. I hate being indifferent, because I'd rather either like hate a movie or really enjoy it. But it was just one of those. I was just like, all right, we saw it. We checked it off the list of things we wanted to see and talk about. But it was just okay. And sometimes that's fine. Like, you don't, like, I'm not gonna dunk on it like the internet is doing, but like, it was just
Yeah, the only thing I really took from it is I wanted to go back and play the games, which is kind of a good thing to take from it. Yeah. But it was more to go back to the game so I could get the humor and the style that the movie was missing.
Sure.
Like, it had some of the look and feel of the video game. I mean, it tried to be a video game in some aspects of it too, but there was some bad acting, some overacting, which is okay when you're doing something campy, but it was the fact that so much stuff fell flat with the humor. Like, the jokes just did not hit, and you've got a director who's not really known for doing comedic stuff. He's known for doing darker horror aspects, and maybe it's a fault of having him take on this story that he got some aspects right and decent, but the humor was just kind of nowhere to be found in the end, and this needed more humor to it to kind of round out how campy and over the top the story and the feeling and everything is. And just Kevin Hart did feel like a miscast in it. Sure. Cate Blanchett is a great actress, but she was so straight-laced in it that she did fine with everything, but there was nothing that really made her a standout character. And you had Tina, which was very over the top, which she is, but it just didn't... Nobody felt like they were playing off of each other, working off of each other very well. And then you bring in Jamie Lee Curtis's character, which she was very over the top with everything she did, but it just wasn't humorous as it seemed like it was going to be. Like, it just fell flat. I think that's the thing I can come out of the movie overall. It was just kind of flat. There was nothing that really got you excited. There was no great humor. There was no action sequences that you really go back and say, oh, that was a lot of fun, because some of them were ruined by bad CG. Others were just... It felt like a video game fight, which is okay, but it just, nothing was memorable to it. Like, it's just kind of a flat overall feeling in a film that just, it could have been a whole lot better than it was. Like, we've had some good video game, in the past, video game adaptations were known for kind of being bad. And we've got some good video game adaptations since then, so this kind of felt a little bit of a step back for it. But it was almost there. Like, there was just some stuff, if they could have got the humor right and got the kind of casting right a little bit better and the feeling a little bit better, it could have been a really great film and could have been a really good adaptation. But in the end, it just felt really flat.
Yeah, and if you'd have told me it was an Eli Roth movie, if you didn't know that going in, you could not tell this was an Eli Roth movie. Like, this doesn't feel anything like any Eli Roth movie I've ever seen. Like, there's no... And I'm almost wondering if this was like a little bit of a passion project of his, maybe, that he could have done, or maybe the check was really nice. I don't know. I don't want to put anybody's motivations into this, but it didn't feel like an Eli Roth film to me. And it's not an indictment of him as a director. There's so many things that he's done in the past that are really good, really well done, especially in the horror genre that he's, more synonymous for. But yeah, it definitely didn't feel like that type of, like, it didn't really have his stamp on it. And maybe
I also wonder if they let him do it rated R, because the game has a lot of bad language and a lot of violence in it.
Yeah, it's a PG-13.
Maybe it would have worked a little bit better as rated R and let him go more over the top with the violence and the language and stuff, and then maybe it would have worked better then and fit his style a little bit better.
And maybe that would have been what it needed to be a better film, like you said. And there's nothing wrong with doing a PG-13 take on something like this, but it didn't give it that edge that I think it could have really needed to have been better. Maybe had it been, maybe less restrictive and going a little more like leaning into that, it could have been a better movie. But at the end of the day, this is what we got. This is what they put out. It was just fine. Like, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. And that's just, I don't like writing that. I don't like writing in that middle line. I either like it was just like, nah, I didn't care for it, or I enjoyed it and there's positive things I could take away with it. There's nothing really positive that I could take away from the movie. Like, it didn't leave any type of lasting impression on me. And I'll be honest, in 2 or 3 weeks, I would be surprised if I remembered anything specifically from the film. And that's probably the most condemning thing I could say about it, is it just didn't leave any type of lasting impression on me.
And I'll probably go, when it comes out on digital and come out on streaming, I'll probably give it another view just to see if there was a different viewing. Maybe it's something you maybe appreciate more after watching it a couple times. It's not something I want to go back in theaters to watch.
Sure.
I'll give it at least one more chance on streaming to see how I feel on it, because I've also going to go back and play some of the games just because it kind of it did get me back into wanting to play the games again, but again, for kind of a bad reason, that not because I love the movie and I want to go back to the games. Like, well, I'm going to go back and see if I remember the games right with its style and with its humor and with everything else, and see kind of more looking at it, where did they go wrong with the movie than like, oh, it was so good, I want to go play the games that it's based off of. But maybe it'll get a lot of business that way if people want to go back and play the games again, because they're like, wait, do I remember the games right? Because it's been a few years since we've had, they're working on Borderlands 4, but it's been a little bit since 3 came out. I think at least a few years now. But yeah, in the end, the movie was just kind of, it got to okay, and it just kind of stayed there. It didn't give too much great excitement. It kind of dipped slightly, but it just kind of got it okay and just stayed there.
Yeah, and that's fine. And at the end of the day, it's going to have the reviews that it does. Please watch the movie and form your own opinion. If you've gone and seen it and you think we're completely missing it, let us know. Leave a comment in our videos. Come talk to us on socials. Talk to us on Discord. We'd love to hear your thoughts if you've seen the film, what you thought of it, or do you agree with us? Do you think we missed the mark on this? Let us know. We're all about having that discussion, and maybe you could see something and maybe give us some perspective that we may feel we may have missed when we watched it. It just, like I said, it's just going to be a film that I think in a couple weeks that I'm not going to remember anything from the movie, and that's unfortunate for that, because it does have a good cast. It does have there are good actors that worked on the film, and even the director himself is brilliant in most cases. But this one, it just didn't hit for me, man.
And it doesn't look like a lot of people have been too excited about it. Like the advertisement for it too. There's been a trailer or two, but there hasn't been a huge push in advertising this movie, and it's already trending in a bad way. They're expecting like less than $10 million domestically for a $115 million big budget video game adaptation film. So that's kind of a bad sign of how everyone's feeling from the reviews, but also just the word of mouth outside of it. Like, we do want you to if you enjoyed the games, go on a budget day and check it out and see if you feel the same or not. Because if you just ignore it, you may end up loving it, even though a lot of us disliked it. Like, don't want you to miss out on something you'd potentially like. But yeah, we just, in the end, as Josh said, it was just very meh. It was okay. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It's hard to feel on it. And I do dislike being in that way. Like, normally you could go one way or the other, but I'm right in the middle of like, it's just okay.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's a perfectly good place to leave this movie. Borderlands is in theaters now. Please go check it out and form your own opinion. And tell us if you think we missed the mark on this. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it.
So what's coming up this week is kind of a lighter week of things, but it also has one of our other most anticipated films of the year. Like Deadpool and Wolverine was definitely tops, but Alien Romulus looks absolutely incredible. And if you don't know much about it, it's definitely taking Alien and Aliens and kind of putting the horror with the action and making a new film that I think takes place before or after the third. I think before the third.
Before Alien 3.
Yes. Yeah, but it looks fantastic. It looks like they've done a lot of practical stuff with it. The trailers, even the advertisement for it, they've had people laying around with face huggers on in theaters and out in New York and LA, just laying in the street with face huggers on. Like, I can't wait to see this movie, and was one of the top movies of the year that I've been looking forward to.
Absolutely. Very much looking forward to checking that one out and reviewing it next week. The director looks like he's brought it back to that horror thriller type aspect of it that I'm very excited to go to theaters and check this one out. After we got a little bit of the Borderlands palate cleanser this week, I'm very excited to get back to a bigger feeling movie and just ready to see that one and have things to say about it.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing that we went from Deadpool and Wolverine, then we did Trap, and we've done Borderlands, both that looked could have been decent, went off the tracks. I do believe Alien Romulus is going to get us right back on the track for a big film, and hopefully a lot of people go see this. It is rated R. It's an alien film. It looks fantastic. But on the other side of the spectrum there, we got My Penguin Friend, which also looks good, but definitely vastly different from Alien Romulus.
Two ends of the spectrum there.
Definitely more family filmed compared to not a family film.
Absolutely.
But two decent choices depending on what you're looking for this week. But we haven't got full confirmation on it, but I want to mention it just in case it drops, because it's been kind of weird lately with streaming and on-demand releases, because some of these movies we will get like a day or two notice that are coming out and they're just there. But it's looking like Twisters is going to hit on demand on August 13th, which, you know, it's kind of a less than a month of it being out, and it's done rather well, so it's kind of surprising that they would be going to on demand for it. But maybe they think with all the big blockbusters with Deadpool and Wolverine and Alien Romulus and more coming out, that if they can go ahead and get out on streaming or on demand, that it can help the film make some more money. Because you can go back on our archives and see what we thought of Twister, but we really enjoyed it. But you can get a full look of what we thought in that episode. But yeah, we've got just that coming out on August 13th here, and hopefully it does well, and we maybe see more, because it's been quite a while between Twister and Twisters, but it does feel like they've set up that they could do plenty more of these, and I'm there for it because I enjoyed it that much.
Absolutely, and it's definitely one to keep an eye on if they do continue it. But now we want to get to the point of the episode that I'm sure some of you have been waiting for. It's time to announce our giveaway for our latest merch giveaway that we've done. We've had several entries. We are proud to announce that the winner of our merch giveaway is Mike Whitaker. So Mike, congratulations. We will be reaching out to you to get your information to send you that. We can't thank you enough for your support of the show, and thank you so much for entering, and congratulations on winning.
Yeah, congratulations, and thanks to everyone who entered on that. We might have another giveaway coming soon around Godzilla and -1. We got the physical release coming out next month. Maybe we'll do something there. And if you have ideas of things that you like to see when it comes to giveaway, we're trying different ways of doing giveaways and what we're giving away, because we want to get interaction, but we also want to give away some, you know, fun and interesting stuff. Yes. So be on the lookout for that. We maybe try to do something a little different with that next giveaway. But yeah, big congratulations. We hope you enjoy your stuff. But yeah, we'll be reaching out to figure out what kind of movie theater chain you want your gift card to, get that t-shirt picked out, and get that out to you as soon as we can.
Yes, congratulations, Mike. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. Coming up next week, we will be reviewing season 2 of House of the Dragon. The season is wrapped up now. We have had time to digest it, and we're going to talk about the season in its totality, give an overview of the season. Very much looking forward to talking to that. We will also be reviewing the film Alien Romulus. Like Brad said, it is one of our most anticipated films of the year. I am so excited to watch it. I'm actually going to get to watch it in California as I'm getting ready to go on vacation. Yes, rubbing that
this
into
guy's just going to California on vacation without me, just leaving me here while he goes to Disney and goes have fun, and I'm just going to be here getting my kids ready for school.
Yeah, let me go ahead and ask Brad about his baseball trip that he took earlier this year, but neither here nor there. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. We can't thank you enough for all your continued support. Please go to willbringthepopcorn.com for all our social media information, as well as the archive videos that we have for every episode that's dropped so far. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support. And until next time, I'm Josh, he is Brad, and we'll see you next week.